not gonna make it. I don't feel the same as you. Why should I fake it? I don't love you like I used to. Oh, it's a tragic story, but it happens all the time. In every category, apart. Everything falls apart. Everything with a star. Don't you know? Later falls apart. Why should I fight it? It is nature's own law. I'm not a hypocrite. I just drew the final straw. Oh, it's a tragic story, but it happens all the time. In every category, over a lifetime. Don't you know that everything falls apart? Everything falls apart. Everything with a star. Don't you know? Later falls apart. If we lived forever, we wouldn't be always. And now it's over. I'm so glad it was you. Oh, it's a tragic story, but it happens all the time. In every category, over a lifetime. Don't you know that everything falls apart? Everything falls apart. Everything with a star. Oh, don't you know? Later falls apart.
Hey, good evening, everybody. We're just taking a quick look at the conditions in the Midwest. We have that anticipated moderate risk for parts of the lower Ohio Valley and central Mississippi Valley there. And we just did the analysis chart here, and you can see that got a warm front going pretty much west-northwest through east-southeast, through Indiana, southern Ohio, and central Illinois. And off to the west there, cold front out in that region. I was a little bit surprised to see in the moisture axis so far west, out around Carbondale. Out ahead of it, moisture field looks a little bit weaker in Kentucky and around Cincinnati there. And we've had some early convection go up around Indianapolis, out in this area here, and extend down towards the Ohio River. And so that's kind of laid down a cold pool, as you can see here, and that's probably going to have some sort of impact this afternoon. Usually if there's a lot of cold air at the surface like that, that can be a problem. It really depends how much depth it is and how extensive it is. Okay. Take a quick look at the charts here. Let me get this set up. And we'll look at the large-scale picture and see what kind of continuity we have. And let's see, 19Z, yeah, that's about current, and that's in the ballpark of where we expect to find that warm front. We went over this kind of yesterday. When we have kind of a shallow layer at the surface, say over southern Ohio, on the 1,000 through 500 millibar thickness, we tend to find the warm front way up here. But let's see, if we go to 1,000 through 850 thickness, let's see what that shows. Looks like you could go either similar to what we have on the charts there, or we can put it in this inverted trough, which is in the Cleveland area, and we kind of analyzed both of those on the maps right there. So that looked like probably the main one, and we definitely see the support for that 57, 56 contrasted with 73. And then this other one up here in that inverted trough, that is probably a change in the slope of the boundary there. And we do have the storms out there. This is what it looks like. Let me run this back. We had one isolated cell that looked kind of promising earlier. You can see it right here. Looks like about 30 miles southwest of Dayton. 15, okay. So this is a cell out ahead of the line there, and it's got a little bit of a supercell structure there. You can see the notch in the inflow area right there. That's going to be the updraft. We can see what looks like maybe a rear flank downdraft back here. Again, this is a previous frame from about 25 minutes ago. And let's see what kind of rotation we had. This is the base velocity here. We're going to need to subtract out that storm motion. Let's see what we can do here. That's a little bit better. Shows broad scale rotation right in that area there. Kind of coming together to a point right there. And the velocities in there kind of weak. 21 versus about 6. So you see that's in that rotating updraft area out ahead of the storm. You can try a cross section through that notch. And you can see the overhang in that storm there. This is the notch area. Lots of overhang above that. A little bit shallow. We're seeing the core of that only at about 12,000 feet. In the bigger Great Plains supercells, that overhang can be up to about 20 to 25, sometimes 30,000 feet there. So this did not last all that long. Let's run that forward. Looked pretty good there for a minute. And then it appears that cell kind of occluded and started dying off as it moved towards the Dayton area, which is probably a good development there. And now we can see it passing through the North Dayton suburbs there. And at this point, let's see what kind of rotation we have. Doesn't look like much of anything. One problem, though, we're kind of sampling that perpendicular to the storm motion. But even so, I don't see any very tight couplets defined in that field there. Spectrum width gives us a little bit of an indication where some of the outflow might be. Seems a little far back there. Yeah, we're not picking up the field from that storm there. So let's see. That cell's continuing to move to the northeast there. And looks like they dropped the tornado warning. Got a couple of other severe cells up further north of Dayton. And at this point, it looks like we're kind of not seeing much going on. Let me see if I can pull up the Louisville radar there. Kentucky is probably going to be a little bit south of the action there. And we've got what looks like kind of a very linear cell there from southern Indiana down to Kentucky, and I don't think we're going to see too much on the velocity field there. So it looks very linear up and down the line. Spectrum width definitely showing that outflow boundary. So that's just out ahead of this downdraft area. And down on the tail end, this is usually what we have to kind of watch, but looks kind of quiet at this time, and you can also use VIL to get a quick look at any cells you need to be concerned about. And we don't see any high VIL values down in this area. Looks like the strongest cell on the tail end, probably this one up just across the river in Indiana there. SPC at this time, they do have a moderate risk out, and this is what things look like. Let me bring up the day one. So there's the moderate risk running from just north of Dayton, right around Indianapolis, all the way down to Memphis. So that goes pretty far south there. And let's see what they're discussing here. Looking for a few tornadoes there. They noticed on the Little Rock Sounding, 18Z, special launch there, little convective inhibition. So it appears we're going to see some development down the line, possibly later this afternoon there. Eventual transition to a more linear mode will result in an increasing damaging wind threat. And that's a good point, because these severe weather outlooks, they don't necessarily mean tornadoes. They can indicate a threat of hail or wind. Outflow dominant with those elevated storms there in Texas, and the line is also going up in that region. Okay. Let's check out the situation with the watch boxes. Got a couple tornado watches from the Ohio region down to Arkansas, and then with those outflow dominant storms and the linear boundary, we pick up the severe weather watch down there in Texas. And for any changes coming down, there's the mesoscale discussion. And there's their analysis right there. And this was issued 2018. This is about 8 minutes ago. Storms increasing in intensity. Stronger indications of outflow, transient rotation. Okay, so they're looking at some possibilities, possibly south of the Ohio River, down there in Kentucky. All right. So there's the overview. And back to the radar there. So yeah, we're going to keep an eye on this and look for any cells that become dominant. So it looks kind of, a lot of these cells, they look pretty weak at this time, but this is pretty early. These are kind of young cells. So there's some potential for those to come together and organize a little bit. Then, of course, way out west, we've got the cold front. Let me bring up the St. Louis radar. And while we're waiting on that, I can show you the front way out to the west there. That's where we're seeing some forced convection out in that region. So that gives us kind of a linear appearance there on the radar. However, there are discrete cells. They're kind of a little bit more isolated, so these definitely bear watching. And yeah, we're getting thunder here too. So there's that moisture field that we've got there in Illinois. And this is an axis of dew points around 64 to 65. So there could be some potential through there while these remain discrete cells. Okay, we'll see how the rotation looks in these storms. A couple spots in here. There's one that you can see right here. It's kind of weak, but that is a couplet there, and then there's a slightly stronger one in this area here. It's kind of spread out, but let me show you the reflectivity. That's going to be out in this flanking line area. New updrafts out in that area. So yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on this, especially in this area here. This is in St. Louis, south of there. It's about 43 miles south of St. Louis, close to Interstate 55. Then we go further down the line, and there's a couple of cells. They've got kind of a bow echo structure. So you see that going on there. That's indicating a lot of outflow in those storms and possibility for wind and hail damage. And those are moving across the southern Ozarks, the far northern Ozarks, and heading towards the I-55 area. And a couple cells out around the Harrison, Arkansas, and Russellville area. Okay, so we've got a lot of areas we're looking at this afternoon. Let's see how things look in the chat there. Ryan Toomey is watching the radar there. Chris Tyne enjoying the music. We have Rat here, much better time for him. Ryan mentioning, yeah, 44 years ago, the super outbreak, and for a while that was one of the that was the highest tornado count there for decades. It was something like 100 and can't remember. I think it was somewhere around 150 tornadoes. Some similarities going on, yeah, definitely, in terms of location. Let me see if I can bring up that that event. Give me just a second, and let me bring that up. Yeah, these daily weather maps, they're on the NOAA site, the main site. For some reason, they're not indexed very well in Google. Yeah, U.S. daily weather maps. It's going to be under library.noaa.gov. So we can go to 1974 there, April 3rd. And this has the potential to affect the stream for just a minute, but we'll see what happens. Okay, well, I don't have the plugin installed, so if y'all want to check that out, that's going to be at library.noaa.gov under U.S. Daily Weather Maps, and you can take a look at that. I think because of the notoriety of that day, there's probably a copy of that online. Yeah, there's a page there at the Wilmington office, April 3rd, 74. Okay, guess we'll have to go with that. But yeah, you can definitely see the similarity of the patterns there. 6 a.m. that morning, warm front through Tennessee and northern Arkansas. Rapidly intensifying system there in Kansas that moved up into Illinois. And dew points in the low 60s around Missouri and Illinois there. Okay, I'm going to take a break and keep an eye on things. And I'll come back probably at the top of the hour, unless something happens between now and then, and we'll see what happens. So I'll leave you with some music, and we'll keep an eye on things. Thanks. Well, it's pretty remarkable. 44 years after the 1974 tornado, we've got a warning for the Xenia, Ohio area. Well, let's see how this looks. Storm around of velocity. Yeah, that's got some rotation in it for sure. It's a little bit on the broad side there. What the heck happened there? Hang on a second. Okay, let's see how wide that circulation is. Looking at about 2 miles. Velocities are not too high. They're 50 knots outbound on the forward side and only 40 on the back side, so it is some broad scale rotation there. Let's see what that looks like there. This is north of that bow echo structure here, and this does tend to be kind of a favorable area for brief tornadoes. And that kind of links back up with this other cell to the north, which has kind of a little bit of a hook echo structure there. So I'm not too sure there's anything on the ground right now, but that would be kind of a potent area there. Let me make sure my microphone's on. Okay. Got another frame in. Looks like the rotation is tightening up just a little bit there, but still holding about 40 knots on the back side and about 50 on the forward side. So yeah, that's about 90 knots, but that's across kind of a wide area. So this is indicative of a rotating updraft. Diameter on that looks like about 1.5 miles there. And usually it's a good idea to go up to higher tilts when you're looking at a circulation like this. Let's go up from 0.5 to 0.9. The intensities are a little bit higher there. Looks like almost pure rotation there. The circulation center located about right there. And we're looking at about 54 out and 39 in, so again about 90 knots. And that's going to be in this notch area right there. 1.3 still kind of spread out. 1.8 still spread out there. So this is really when it's very helpful to have spotters there close to that notch kind of watching things. But it's continued to move out very rapidly. Just since we've gone on, it's moved about 2 to 3 miles there. And we're looking at the area about 7 miles northeast of Xenia, Ohio. The area is under a tornado warning right now. Moving east at 45, probably a little more northeast. Radar indicated rotation. Looks like I'm a little bit off center here. Yeah, there we go. So we're back down to 0.5. Looking at the circulation, it's still kind of spread out there. And let's see how far we are from the radar. That's kind of an important factor. Okay, our dot's up there. We're looking at about 22 miles. That's not too bad. That's definitely close enough to detect that. So there's our couplet there around Clifton, Ohio. And it looks like it's embedded in the northern side of that bow echo. So it may be about to rotate out towards the bookend region. Looks like we've kind of lost the circulation a little bit there, passing through the Clifton area, and it's just kind of embedded in that that bow right there. And let's see what else is going on. Just take a quick look. I did notice that some of the better helicity, I don't know if you saw the products I had up earlier. But I was looking at the rapid refresh output of the helicity fields, and they are kind of concentrated up there around Xenia, and they diminish rapidly as you go south of the Ohio River. But on the backside, ahead of that cold front, there are some pretty high values. And I was looking at this little corridor here, just north of the Missouri Boot Heel. That's a region of elevated values. So we'd probably want to keep an eye on that stuff there as it heads out into that environment. So there's our Xenia storm. Let me take a quick look out to the west there, or might as well go down the line. Got a couple of bow echo looking structures there. Just southwest of Cincinnati, and let me switch over to, yeah, I can see a tornado warning. It's going to be around northern Arkansas, southern Missouri. Let me see if I can bring up a radar in that area. Okay, starting out, we're looking at Paducah. And these cells aren't doing too much. Looks kind of multicellular there. And I don't think we have a good radar for this area here. I guess we can try Springfield. And it's got a little bit of a outflowish structure there. We're at a distance from that cell of, or from the radar, about 95 miles, so that's not a good viewing location there. That's pretty far from all the radars. And then going further down the line, these all look a little bit weaker. Okay, so back out to Xenia, taking a look out in that region. The cell does look a little bit less discrete. Looks like it's picking up some of that linear structure there. Can still see the rotation going there just east of Clifton, and that's basically becoming a bookend vortex right there. Okay, the other activity looks kind of a little bit disorganized. Not much going on, so this is probably a good time to look at VIL values. And that could kind of alert you to where things are coming together rapidly. So there might be one cell here around Lebanon we might have to take a look at. That's on the tail end, and that looks kind of disorganized at this time. Okay, that's probably about all I got at this moment. I'm going to take a look at the printer and see if the new chart's on, and once I've got that, we'll try analyzing that. So I'm going to go ahead and return you to the music, and I'll do some housekeeping back here and keep an eye on it. Alrighty.
wanna come over tonight. Yeah, you wanna make up and make it right. When everybody's looking for something else they can do, we try to make it work this time. We had let go of our doubts. Let's make it matter, 'cause we will never ever come down. It looks like we made it. If your heart should break on the map of my mistakes, I'm here if you need me. Just keep on believing. If the sky should fall, I'll give you shelter through it all. You better believe it. I'm here if you need me, 'cause it's waiting there for you. We have to be bolder tonight. Yeah, we have to turn darkness into light. When everything we have done comes around, comes undone, we try to make it right this time. We just gotta make up our minds. Let's make it matter, 'cause we will never ever slow down. This time we will make it. If your heart should break on the map of my mistakes, I'm here if you need me. Just keep on believing. If the sky should fall, I'll give you shelter.
Well, just a quick update, 5:09 p.m. Eastern, 4:09 p.m. Central. Not much left of that old tornado warning circulation that passed around the Xenia area earlier, kind of up in this area here. And earlier you can see how, actually you can't see that, but earlier we did have a circulation back in this area. The couplet showed up a lot stronger, and we're not really left with anything at this time. So rolling this forward, our higher velocities disappear, and I think a big problem that we're having is there's a lot of cell competition, many cells up and down this line. Now you probably saw that analysis that I was doing right there. There is that warm front that's just north of Cincinnati, south of Xenia. That is a fairly potent baroclinic boundary, so that's got thermal contrast, and up to the north it's got that backed wind flow. So anywhere along and north of that front in southwestern Ohio does have some potential. So on the radar, that would be certainly anything in here. So any isolated cells that become intense, those are the ones we would have to watch out for. Now we've got these other cells. Yeah, this is down in Kentucky. These are heading into an area where the winds are not quite as backed. So this is a little bit probably more linear and more cell competition in that area. And those are developing right here around Louisville, Kentucky. And you can see that the air mass out here, the winds are a little bit veered. The dew points are a little bit lower, upper 50s, and the winds are not as back. So I'm not really too sure about tornado prospects there in Kentucky. But if anything does get going around the Cincinnati area northward, that is something I would be concerned about. Then, of course, we have the front out to the west there. Lots of moisture. Winds are not as backed in that area, though. Winds are about 210 at 15. So the photographs are going to be a little less curved through that region. So at this time, in terms of ingredients, southern Ohio looks probably the best as far as I can see. But not a whole lot going on in that zone right now. There's the radar. This is kind of the area I'm watching, but as you can see, not a whole lot going on right now. That warm front kind of in this zone right there. And yeah, we do got to keep in mind the map is about 1 hour old. I'm just waiting on the current data to come in. Okay, let me see how things are going in chat. I see the viewers are slowly ramping up. Almost a repeat of 1974, although nowhere near as bad as it was back then. But it is the 44th anniversary of the Xenia F5 tornado and the big super outbreak. Got Carl Berghoff and Thomas Copeland, Andrew Murphy, ready for May there. Got a lot of other discussion going on in chat. Dane Hammond, Fun with Tech, Misty Sowards. Mike Estrick asking about the occluded front there in Illinois. Yeah, I decided to go with an occlusion in that area because it looked like the warm sector was a little bit kind of like decoupled from that low, so I wonder if that's maybe the start of occlusion up in that region, because the temperatures up in this area, 64 there, I guess that's around Mattoon, 66, 65, and that's definitely different from these 71s and 70s in this area here. It's not that much of a contrast, but you do have to go with that southern gradient, the southern edge of that gradient. I guess you could probably put a boundary up through here, certainly. But then I can't really figure out how that would connect back in towards Cincinnati there. So I decided to kind of go with that for the time being. Andrew Murphy mentioning it's been windy and cold, going to be down in the 20s. And let's see here. Misty Edwards reporting about 10 minutes ago. Tornado warning. Tornado on the ground. There's so much message traffic, it's really hard for me to tell what that's referring to. But okay, Western Ohio. I can't tell where that is from all the messages. But anyway, we do have a tornado warning still in effect for that area around London, Ohio. And just using purely the radar, let me see if there's anything I can pick up on in this data. You can see kind of a circulation right there. That's kind of a bookend vortex area. This stuff to me looks all kind of outflowish. Yeah, I'm not really seeing anything in there that looks suspect at this time. And then going down the line, nothing there either. Looks like the velocities are a little bit lower. Sometimes I'll go to spectrum width and see if there's any unusual boundaries that show up, and I don't really see anything. So I think for the time being it's looking okay in Ohio. And this stuff does not look all that impressive, looks kind of disorganized at this time. And these cells, yeah, we'll probably have to keep an eye on these. You see those higher intensities coming up in the northeastern Cincinnati suburbs. There's actually 2 cells. So those do kind of catch my attention because those are kind of in a favorable area there. Veil value is looking pretty low there, so probably not much depth on those cells. In fact, let me check echo tops. Only seeing about 30,000 on those, compared with 40,000 on the old Xenia storm. So these, we'll just have to keep an eye on those for any further development. Then further down the line, this stuff looks all linear, kind of disorganized, and as I've shown you, the dew points and the wind field could be better down there in Kentucky. And nothing new out west. So I'm going to work on a 5 p.m. Eastern printout, and we'll try to update the surface chart. So what I'll do is I'll bring you back to the music and I'll get all that stuff straightened out there.
getting out of this one. Getting out of this one. Days of romantic prose and lilac wine, nights out under the sky, watching stars align. Days of making sweet honey, Melissa, lemon balm. Nights as warm as your breath on my chest, so calm. Now baby, let the summer breeze carry us away. Let the summer breeze carry us away. Baby, to a place where the sun a lie. Can still see you walk down the shore, holding in all the secrets kept me waiting for the answers. The answers. Yeah. We can do it all again. I know. Somewhere down the line we're meant to come back home. We can do it all again. I know. I know. Somebody said it's only those who dare to die young who get the most out of a life under the sun. But I know it's not true. I've seen the future, and it's brighter than the eye when we are together. Yeah, it's brighter than the eye when we are together. Last day I saw you in town, didn't care to say hi, you were in a rush. And let's say I'll see you again, would you care to sit down, or was it just a crush? I see you walk down the street.
Okay, guys, I wanted to jump back in on this. I was looking more at the ingredients later this evening, like in about 3 or 4 hours, what's coming down the road here. So we've got a fairly good understanding of the setup for this afternoon. You can see on this map, one issue we've got going on in Kentucky are these strong surface winds. And that's going to relate to something I'm going to show you here in a minute. We've also got that warm front lifting north of Cincinnati into Ohio, and I think all these patterns are probably moving fairly quick. And then we've got this other front coming in from Illinois later on. Now on the surface chart you can kind of see some of this going on here. This is the high resolution rapid refresh. So what you're seeing here, I guess maybe that is the warm front. Maybe it is a little further north. You can definitely see it there in Ohio. So north of there, the backed winds are helping to elongate the 0 kilometer point. Let me see if I can show that to you here. So this is north of that warm front. And you can see the 0 line is way over in this sector because the winds are out of the southeast. They're out of the southeast at 10. So that's helping this segment from 0 through 1 kilometer to elongate, which is good for rotating storms. But down to the south in this air mass, south of the warm front, the winds are more veered down in this area. They're faster, so that's giving this setup 15 to 20 knots there, and we get a shorter segment. And it looks like this evening, as that warm front lifts north, that's going to shift into eastern and north-central Ohio. And then it appears we pick up this other area in western Kentucky, western Tennessee, and far southern Indiana. And you can kind of see what's happening here in Kentucky. This area kind of blooms higher storm meltophilicity. And if we just take a sample there in eastern Kentucky, we're going to look at the photographs and you see how elongated this segment is. And that appears to be partly because of the 850, 925 millibar winds picking up, but it's also due to the surface winds slowing down and possibly backing a little bit. So that's helping to stretch out that segment quite a bit in about 3 or 4 hours. And that's the reason I was looking at these charts here. This is the surface prog for this evening, and we start out seeing these 20-knot winds in Kentucky, but they appear weaker out west. And as we roll forward, you notice already the winds pretty quickly start dying down in Kentucky, and maybe a hint of maybe a tiny bit of backing, not much, but let's see, maybe especially right here, you can see the winds are almost due out of the south. So this could indicate possibly a zone in this area, Kentucky, later this evening towards about 9 or 10. And then the other ingredient is up at 8:50. Things start out with looks like about 45 knots, 35, we're going to say about 30 to 45 across Kentucky. And then later this evening, now we start picking up a lot of 50s and even 55. So there's a lot of dynamic forcing going on with this. Height falls, pressure falls up to the north, helping to build that pressure gradient. And it appears they peak at about 8 o'clock Eastern, 60 knots through this entire area here, and even a few 65s there. But this will move pretty quickly to the east, and it appears stronger forcing will be moving into West Virginia, western Pennsylvania, and almost to Virginia before midnight. And a lot of cold air coming back in behind. So that's a quick update there. Let me just check the radar, and then we're just going to kind of hold on until about the top of the hour. Okay, we're getting a little bit more discrete cells here. See what's going on here. There's another cell. This is east and south of Columbus, Ohio. So these definitely bear watching. Velocities are coming up pretty quickly in these cells. So there's a couplet right there. So let's see what that looked like earlier. Hang on a second. Yeah, we were seeing 23 out, 24 in, about 50 knots of almost gate shear there. And that was right in that updraft area. And let's see what's going on with this cell. Not a whole lot. So yeah, for now this looks to be the main cell of interest, and let's see what kind of movement we've got on that. Always go backwards to kind of establish the base motion. So 260, the inverse of that is 80. So the movement, and I've seen this with the Xenia storm too, moving about 80 degrees relative to true north. So that's going to carry it just north of Carroll and just north of Baltimore, Ohio. So that's your projected motion there, and that's going to head just pretty much up like this. And let's check out the VILs. Yep, see how high they are in this storm. Also picking up a little bit on the cell to the south, and this one is coming up pretty good near New Holland. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that one there. But velocities in there not looking very strong at this time. And then the stuff down to the south, well actually, yeah, you can see the clear air returns here. Showing the winds out of 200. Showing about 40 knots, up at about 1 to 2,000. So that's showing a little bit of that low-level jet action. So changes in that field over time at that radar site. Oh, interesting. You pick up the outflow. Yeah, there it is, pushing south. Anyway, that outflow will probably have an impact there on the low-level wind field, but we could see that come up later in Wilmington if the air mass recovers. And this stuff is moving pretty quickly south of Cincinnati, and things are pretty much isolated to scattered in Kentucky proper. So I guess we're kind of priming that air mass down there for round 2 coming up later this evening. So for right now, just watching that one cell east of Columbus and this area here. there's some decent potential between Columbus and Cincinnati for development because of that warm front there in the backing just north of there. Although the dew points are kind of on the weak side, 54 there, 56, so that could lean things towards more of a outflowish setup. Anyway, I'll come back at the top of the hour and we'll look at it again, so we'll see you then. Let me change your music. Hang on a second. Okay, we'll give this a shot. Hey all, welcome back to Meteorology Lab. Coming up on 6 o'clock Eastern, and we're following this weather system moving through Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio. The surface chart, of course, a lot of you have probably seen this already, showing that warm front from about, I don't know the cities down here too much. I guess that's south of Mattoon, north of Carbondale, and it goes all the way to Cincinnati there. Haven't seen a whole lot of like really organized supercells ahead of this warm front. And I think a big reason for that is I don't really find any 60s dew points in this area. The wind field looks really good. But I guess we're just lacking the better moisture. And that can be an issue too, because if your moisture is limited, then your LCL is going to be a little bit higher. And you start bringing outflow and that kind of stuff more into the picture. I was looking at the theta E here. This is kind of a combination of temperature and dew point. I was trying to get an idea of what was going on. So this is how things look about 4 p.m. Eastern. And I noticed the theta E's kind of subsided as all this activity moved into Kentucky. And probably a big reason for that is the loss of heating after sunset there. Let me see what the dew points look like though. So our dew points are going to be coming up. And this is looking strictly at moisture. The blues here, those are going to be 60s and above. The dark blues are mid and upper 60s dew points. And then the green is 50s dew points. So this is around 6 p.m. and let's see how things progress during the evening. Looks like the moisture does subside a little bit. So we go from mid and upper 60s dew points to low 60s dew points. So I think the majority of these storms will probably be a little bit outflowish there. But as we mentioned, there's some very good low-level shear there. I can just pick a random spot, central Kentucky there for this evening, about 2 to 3 Z. And there on the photograph you can see the wide separation between 0 and 1 kilometer due to that strong 850 millibar jet and the weaker low-level winds, surface winds there. The soundings you can see over here on the left, we do lose a little bit of the moisture. We go from 59 at the surface to low 50s up at about 2,000 to 3,000 feet. So about the best that this moisture gets is at the start of the animation over the boot heel of Missouri. And I'll show you the parcels there. Let me get rid of this. There we go. So the moisture starts out 65. We go into low 60s up to about 2,000 or 3,000 feet. Then it starts falling off into the 50s. And that's probably one of the better parcels available this evening. And that kind of declines as things go on. And let me get on the moisture axis here and see what the sounding looks like. This is around the Louisville area. 63 falling off into 50s aloft. So yeah, that will be a little bit of an issue this evening, but some very good lapse rates there from 850 to 700. And there's that very strong shear there. The significant tornado potential algorithm, though, going a little bit marginal there, and let's see the weighting, how that stacks up. Storm relativity looks good. LCL looks good, okay. I guess we're also kind of cool in that column. The bulk wind difference is a little bit low. And that might be offset a little bit by the fact we're only sampling 0 through 6 kilometers. You can see the anvil tops are much stronger due to that 100-knot jet up there. So storm relative anvil winds will be a little bit high there. Let's see if we have a forecast of the, let's see if we have the actual forecast cells, and we'll also look at the significant tornado parameter. Okay, here's the high-resolution rapid refresh showing the forecast this evening. You can see the cold front out to the west and the older activity from earlier today along that warm front, and we roll that forward. Model going for numerous cells all up and down the cold front. Looks like kind of a locally maybe enhanced area right around here. That's around Louisville to about Lexington. But by about 10 p.m. looks like it looks pretty linear there. That could be due to the moisture and the theta E's backing off a little bit later on. I don't see any concentrated point convergence up and down the line. Just looks like a trough going all the way down to Tennessee. So, yeah, about the only local enhancement I can see is right there. And there we're talking probably about 8 o'clock, 7 or 8 p.m. this evening. And then the significant tornado parameter, this is kind of a combination of different favorable parameters, buoyancy, shear, and all that. Let's see how that sets up. 22Z, that's the current time right there, showing high values around the Paducah area. And after that, they fall off a little bit. And I think we're kind of losing the thermodynamic field later. You can see the significant tornado parameter goes down. Let me just take another look at the weighting factors there. Yeah, it's saying storm out of Felicity, that's the main contributor there. That's showing up very good, but the other values are looking a little bit low. Let's see here, Cape 350, yeah, that's on the low side. Energy Helicity Index is up there a little bit, 1, because of the strong contribution of helicity. So the question is whether helicity is going to be able to carry the weight tonight. Let's see. See, those photographs look excellent, but the moisture just looks... There's dry air right off the surface. I caught some very good cape there. Let me show you on the map where that was. Yeah, right there. Around the Louisville area. So, as Chuck Doswell once said, it's going to boil down to mesoscale accidents for tonight, definitely. This sounding I pulled up, mixed layer 571, dry air right off the surface. Again, very good SRH right off the right off of this sounding. And let's see how things are looking at this time. This is looking down in Kentucky, southeast and south of Cincinnati. Things still look fairly linear and disorganized, but a couple cells are looking a little bit bowed out. This one looks kind of interesting. Let's check the velocities. None of those look particularly impressive. Let's work our way up the line towards Columbus. Columbus doesn't seem to have a good radar site. Huh, they give you Cleveland, Wilmington, and Pittsburgh. And these cells are getting kind of out of range of Wilmington. We're picking up some of the range folding and stuff like that going on. But from what I can see, I don't see any well-defined couplets in any of this stuff. They're still carrying the tornado warnings on that, though. So anything that's going on there, probably shallow, if anything. Then a couple cells further down the line, not too much organization at this time, but those are, of course, the ones we want to keep an eye on there. And just to remind you, the dew points are on the low side. So that appears to be kind of the story there in Ohio. Upper 50s dew points and just one little spot of 60 that I saw earlier around Cincinnati. And then taking a look out west, we've dropped that tornado warning up there around Mount Vernon. But a couple tornado warnings way out there in southeast Missouri. And there we are, a couple of isolated, well, a couple stronger cells right there around Cape Girardeau and Poplar Bluff. Classic triangular supercell appearance on that cell. Yeah, it looks like some fairly decent gate-to-gate shear. The rotation on this, looking about 53 versus, yeah, that's going to be about 70 knots of rotation in that, so that storm is spinning. And let's check out this one up near Cape Girardeau. I don't see any well-defined couplets. Maybe this up here. Possibly a weak one southwest of Cape Girardeau. But it did look a little bit better earlier. Okay, that's on the back side there. So the area I would keep an eye on is right there. That's going to be, again, southwest of Cape Girardeau, out in this area here. Although it appears there's a lot of seeding going on. Quite a few cells extending up into Illinois and further down, just severe thunderstorm warnings through Arkansas down to Louisiana. These, of course, here in western Kentucky, those have to be watched for. Any of them that become intense, VL values are looking pretty weak, though. You can see the echo tops are pretty low, mostly about 20,000, 25, and a few 30s in there. Not very well organized. So I think at this point I'm going to print off another chart and get that going, and we'll analyze another one here. And then I'll try to get caught up on the messages. So that's how things look at this time, and we'll get that analysis finished.
I hear a car horn outside my window. I hear the screen door squeak. My baby walks in, says, get up off that pillow. Daylight's burning as we speak. Up, up and away. Let us skip this town. Up, up and away. I can't wait to be sunshine bound. Boardwalk stand for heaters. Late night margaritas. Let's skip town today. Up, up and away. He's got 2 tickets to Santo Domingo, leaving from Linden B. I'm lucky to have such a corazón amigo, and I will follow where he'll go. Up, up and away. Let us skip this town. Up, up and away. I can't wait to be sunshine bound. Boardwalk stand for heaters. Breakfast margaritas. Let's skip town today. Up, up, up and away. Up, up and away. Up, up and away. Let's leave today, my sweetest dear. Let's get out of here. Up, up and away. Oh, up and away. Up and away.
Almost started to drum solo there. Got a pretty good... The tornado warnings are definitely coming out for Illinois and Missouri there. You can see we got a bunch of them now, stretching from about, let's see here, it's going to be south of Mount Vernon, all the way down to Cape Girardeau, where we've got kind of a persistent cell. The Poplar Bluff cell has moved out towards Dexter and Dudley. Tornado warning on that. And tornado warnings coming out for northern Arkansas. And that extends all the way down to about Heber Springs there. Now this is certainly a favorable environment out here. I'll show you the charts. Yeah, the significant tornado parameter kind of bears it out. And what you'll see here is if we advance this up to around the current time, there's that little zone there of very favorable shear. And possibly, well, let's see what's contributing to that. Let me set this on the Paducah area. And we'll see what's contributing to those high values. Definitely the storm out of Felicity. LCL. Yep, high relative humidities there. It's fairly uncapped, and we've got instability. You can see the different Cape values here ranging from about 2,000 up to 2,700. Sorry, that's off the edge. Yeah, see how much higher those values are compared to what we were looking at in Kentucky later this evening. SRHs also up there, 300 on that surface through 1 kilometer. So it looks like a kind of a good window of opportunity between around Blytheville up to southern Illinois there. And then it appears things kind of die off as we lose the heating and the moisture. And I noticed the dew points had come down a little bit on that chart there. We were seeing a lot of 64s out in southern Illinois, and they've dropped down to probably about 2 or 3 degrees there. Some of the better dew points actually up in the Indianapolis area, although the air mass is a little bit cooler in that region. All right, and let's see how things progress through the evening. Yeah, we're pretty much down to the contribution of storm out of Felicity in Kentucky in about 3 to 4 hours here. So it looks like we're going to see the tornado warnings for at least another hour or two, and then those will start subsiding as the evening goes on. And hardly any significant tornado parameter left around midnight. So everything kind of dies off. So there's a strongly diurnal aspect to this activity. And because of that, we're going to be mostly focusing on that area around Evansville, down to Paducah, and down the Mississippi River some, and we'll have to watch that southern Ohio area this evening. So the radar, there's all the cells. There's a lot of cell competition. This one around Cape Girardeau crossing into Illinois looking pretty good, but it is kind of HP-ish. And the circulation kind of spread out at this time. And looked a little bit better earlier, where we had that really good gate-to-gate shear there. That was about 60 or 70 knots at that range there. And the cell just weakening a little bit, but it could be going through a cycle. And then this one, this is almost to the edge of the range. It's also got some fairly decent velocities in that. And that's going to be mostly in this updraft notch right there. All right, and then up in Ohio, We've got that one bow echo. It's got kind of a bookend vortex on the north side that's been kind of persistent. Wow, that's really moved quite a bit. It's 40 miles east of Columbus there. That's going to be in West Virginia in about an hour. So there's that warning. That's going to be on the north end of that bow echo. And it's very difficult to discern any couplets in that stuff. That's getting pretty far from the radar. Higher tilts, not much help there. And then taking a look down the line, nothing too interesting really. That could just be a little anomaly. Yeah, that appears to be just some noise there. These cells here in Kentucky, they're looking a little bit more, actually that's, no, scratch that, that's the southern counties, Ohio there, going into Kentucky. Earlier they were looking a little bit more bow echo-ish, but they are picking up a little bit of discreteness, and this one looks pretty good there. The velocity, got to keep in mind the radar is up that way. So we've got a little bit of rotation in that. Looks like about 50 knots, kind of spread out across 3 or 4 miles. But the center of the circulation right there, about to cross into Ohio. And it looks like that's kind of rain-wrapped. Very pronounced bow echo there. And of course we have to watch that northern end for a little bit of a bookend vortex there, and of course the leading edge. That could also have some activity a little bit later as it moves towards Maysville there. Or pretty much anywhere along this highway here. State Route 10, Kentucky. And then these other cells, those aren't looking too impressive. The VILs are pretty low except for this cell here. So that's a pretty good distance from the radar, but not seeing much going on in that cell at this time, but it is pretty strong there. Tornado warning issued for area just northwest of Indianapolis, east of Danville. So it looks like that's been out for a few minutes at least around Crawfordsville. Radar confirmed tornado in that area. That's a little bit out of range of the radar. And then you can see those other cells there. Okay, boy, there's a lot of activity in chat. I'm probably not going to be able to get caught up with it all. Let me just take a quick look and see what's going on. There's people sharing their observations, keeping an eye on things. Sue M asks if we're using radar scope. This is a GR level 2 analyst. Trent reports tornado on the ground south of Columbus moving east, reported by law enforcement. I don't know if that's current or not. That could be from earlier. Nothing going on around the Columbus area right now. It's probably a good idea to post the times when you get those reports, so we make sure we have the latest. Let me switch over to SPC and See if I can grab some of the reports. Storm reports. Let's see here. So far, officially, we've got 2 tornadoes there. One in the Wilmington area from earlier. That was around 2057. That's probably about almost 2 hours ago, I think, there. And then a slightly newer one from about an hour ago. That was the one up in Effingham, Illinois. Okay, well, let's see. We've been doing this for, let me see how long we've been on. 2 hours, 40 minutes, and unfortunately I've got to tend to some family stuff, and you know how that goes. So I'm going to go ahead and take a break, and I might be back at 8 o'clock. If anything looks significant later, we can certainly jump in and do a special weathercast, but I think that'll probably do it for now. And hopefully you all have some ideas, things to look out for, and items to look for on your surface and radar imagery. So hopefully you all have fun with that, and we'll try to be back a little bit later. There's the closing music. So y'all have a good rest of the evening, and I'll try to be back on in a little bit. Take care all.